G'day and welcome to ReDriven. Now this, the very English first generation Mini hatchback, might just be the most multicultural car on the market. Why multicultural? Well, Mini is owned by BMW, which is a German company. It was designed by Frank Stephenson. He was born in Morocco. The engines are made in Brazil by a company that's part owned by Chrysler, which is an American company. And the whole thing is bolted together in the UK. But the real question is, how have these multicultural little cars stood the test of time? Like, are they actually any good? Like, these were incredibly popular back in the 2000s and have remained really popular, and they seem like bargains these days, but what actually goes wrong with them? Like, what do they cost to own and maintain? And most importantly, should you buy one? Let's find out. Now, before we get deep into the Mini, can you please do us a favor and hit those like, subscribe and bell icon buttons, and after the video, go and check us out on the socials. Now, I should mention in this video, we are going to be focusing on the Australian variant of the first generation Mini hatchback. But if you're not from Australia, don't freak out, don't panic, because everything we're going to be going over should relate to Minis in your local market. The new Mini first landed locally way back in 2002 and was available in primarily two different trim levels. This, the Cooper, and the performance-orientated supercharged Cooper S, both initially as a hatchback with a convertible joining the lineup in 2004. However, a host of various limited and other editions have been available, not to mention the huge scope of variants that the Mini customization parts catalogues can provide. This first generation of the new Mini also received a facelift in 2004 for the upcoming 2005 model year, receiving some exterior aesthetic changes that we'll cover shortly. But aside from the looks, this update brought with it an improvement in equipment and interior materials and some very worthy mechanical changes under the skin, especially in terms of the Cooper S. We will be covering loads of these changes and what to watch out for. And look, we'd love to cover every graphic detail of the Mini in this video, but we can't. That would just take far too long. But we have gathered all that information and we put it in our handy ReDriven cheat sheets. Our cheat sheets are invaluable as they provide a full breakdown of the car's model range, its common problems, what you need to look out for before handing over your hard-earned cash, how much of that cash you should be handing over, and so much more. Check it out at redriven.com or in the link below. Also, look, if you already own a Mini or you're a Mini expert and you've noticed that we've missed something in this video, please let us know in the comments below. Obviously, we're going to try and do our best to cover as much as we can, but if we've missed something, let us know in the comments. So, does it look good? Look, I know looks are supposed to be subjective, but thanks to the brilliant Frank Stephenson, I think objectively we can all agree this is a fantastic looking car. Even 20 years on, this still looks great. Now, if you're wondering who Frank Stephenson is, he actually designed everything from the original BMW X5 through to the McLaren F1, and for me at least, he nailed it with this generation Mini. Actually, since he's left Mini, I kind of feel like the brand has kind of lost its way in design terms. Like, this looks, nice and small and athletic and tight, but now they just look a bit big and bulky. Like, it's kind of gone off the rails since Frank left. Now, this generation Mini, it was one of the first kind of mainstream cars to offer an immense amount of customization. As you can see on this car, there's driving lights and stripes. It's very rare to see two Minis the same because the plethora of options that were available are immense. Also, to tell if the Mini you're looking at is a Cooper or a Cooper S, the Cooper S has a big hole about here. No hole, no Cooper S. And also to tell the difference between the pre and post facelift, pre-facelift has this grille, post-facelift has this grille, and the reversing light went from the center of the bottom of the rear bar to up in the taillights. Now, in terms of issues and common problems to watch out for, there's quite a lot, so we're going to get to that in our what goes wrong section. So how's the interior? Well, like the exterior, they have nailed it as far as the design terms in here. It's paying homage to the original 1960s and 70s Minis, and they've absolutely nailed it. At least in terms of design, because when it comes to materials, it's starting to feel its age a little bit. Speaking of the materials, I should mention that they did improve the quality of the materials and the quality of fit and finish in the post-2004 facelift ones, because these pre-facelift ones can get a bit rattly. There were also some design changes in the post-2004 facelifted ones. For example, the two-spoke steering wheel became a three-spoke steering wheel and the clock moved from up here to in there. Also, like the exterior, there are a host of options for the interior. So again, it feels like no two Mini interiors are the same. There's different leathers, different colors, different sticker packs. The range of accessories is vast. Now, as far as wear and tear goes, this car is nearly 20 years old, has stacks of kilometres on it, and the wear and tear is okay. Like, there's some paint starting to chip off all the silver and the door cards here, paint starting to rub off where your leg rubs against the centre console there. A lot of the things that move are starting to feel a bit fragile, like the indicator and windscreen wiper stalks feel just a little bit fragile. Even the door handle feels just a little bit overly light and fragile. But in saying that, a lot of the switchgear still feels really good. Like, certain things feel solid, certain things not so much. Yeah, there's some squeaks and stuff going on. Speaking of things that feel loose, that happens. The seats are wearing really well. They still feel really good. All the carpets still feel nice in here. It's a little bit hard to judge the wear and tear of the steering wheel because it has this delightful steering wheel cover on it. The gear knob has definitely seen better days, and the mirror adjustment switch and all the plastic around it's looking a bit worse for wear. And the paint on the handbrake is clearly coming off. Look, even though there are some squeaks and rattles and noises, and these cars are getting pretty cheap, we'll get to the price of what these cost to buy in a second, it doesn't feel like a cheap car by any means. It still feels kind of premium. But one thing that annoys me, not so much about this car, and it's something we mentioned in our Fiat 500 review video, the link is just up here, why can't companies like Toyota and Mazda or even Honda do interiors like this and the Fiat 500? Like this and the Fiat 500, they're so full of character and charm and they're kind of cool and funky, but then you get in like a Yaris or a Mazda 2, good cars, but they're a bit conservative. Why can't we have good quality, well-built cars that just look like this? Now the back seat, I'm 0.8811 Zazen tall. This is in my driving position and it is bloody squishy back here. I can't feel my feet anymore. I've only been back here for a matter of seconds. Wear and tear is actually excellent because I don't think anyone's ever sat back here. The wonderful gentleman that owns this car wouldn't put anyone through that level of torture. So the seats are wearing really nicely. Some of the plastic has got some scuffing on it, but I think that's from when the seats are down and there's some just stuff put in the back. But overall, besides not being able to feel my legs or feet anymore, it's quite good back here. So how's the tech? Well, for the early 2000s, it's fine, it does the job. But so did fax machines. These days, fax machines are just a complete joke, and so is this level of tech. Forget about any sort of phone connectivity or like a reversing camera or parking sensors. But you do get a CD player and 6 speakers. Satellite navigation was an option in these things, but it is shit. Like reading an 18th century map of a different country is going to be more accurate than the satellite navigation in these cars. Just use your phone instead. However, all of these issues are easily fixed, like the gentleman that owns this car has done, by fitting an aftermarket head unit. So, is it practical? Well, this is one area that the Mini is definitely more form over function because it doesn't use its interior space all that well. It's very, very cramped back here. And even with the seats folded down, because they don't fold flat as such, it's not all that practical. You can remove the back seats, which makes it a little bit more practical, but yeah, compared to other cars in this class, not that practical. Practicality in the back seat, you've got some actually quite good sized side bins and some nets on the backs of the seat. That's it. And practicality up front, you've got actually pretty decent sized door bins. There's no glove box, but there's more of like a glove shelf. You've got a chasm of space behind the center console, but it's not really storage as such. 2 little cup holders and kind of a maraca of storage back here. There's not really anywhere specifically for a smartphone because the smartphones hadn't been invented when this car was out, so you just put it on the shelf anyway. Okay, what goes wrong with these? It's a fair bit, but before we get to the mechanical stuff, let's start with the exterior. First up, the black plastics have a habit of going like a patchy kind of grey colour, exactly like this, although it's pretty easy to fix with some quality car care products like this one. Like many cars this age, you've got to check for rust. Check the bottoms of the doors, under the weather stripping on the door edge, the joint between the plastic body kit and the metal above the number plate on the tailgate, around the taillights, and check the subframe. If you see any signs of rust, just walk away. This car, no rust. Okay, next up, check for accident damage. The big problem is because these are getting more and more affordable, a lot of people don't comprehensively insure them. So if they have a bit of an impact with something, rather than getting it repaired properly because they don't have insurance, they do it on the cheap and dodgy. So you can see some pretty crappy repair work. And make sure you pop the bonnet and look for any signs of overspray. If it seems like it's been repaired on the cheap, yeah, again, walk away. Next up, check all the wheels for any signs of gutter rash or any serious impacts. Most Minis spend their time in metropolitan and built up areas, and if it's had like a decent hit with a gutter or like a median strip, yeah, we'd be walking away. Next up, check the tyres and make sure they're all the same brand and all the same model of tyre. If they're 4 different tyres, it's a good sign that the owner's trying to cut some corners with costs and expenditure. If they're cutting corners there, where else are they cutting corners? And also, look at how the tyres are wearing. If it's wearing really unevenly, it might need a wheel alignment, or even worse, need some suspension components. Next up, the window mechanisms. These are known to fail, and to fix them is really, really fiddly, and that will cost money in labour, although this car has never suffered from that. Also in the doors, the door lock cables are pretty weak and they can fail, but not in this car. Now, if you're looking at a convertible version, make sure you check the carpets for any signs of water stains, both on and under the carpet. Not only do the convertible roofs have a habit of leaking, there are loads of reports that the actual mechanism completely fails, generally leaving it completely open, so if it rains, it just drenches the interior with water. Also, if you're looking at a hardtop version with a sunroof, the sunroofs can also leak and the water channels can fill up with crap really easily, which just builds to water filling up your footwell, which can lead to rust. Now, issues and problems inside. First up, make sure that the air conditioning works or if the fan system has been replaced, because there are loads of reports of that little fan unit freaking out and making weird noises and just breaking down. But the problem is, to get to it, you've got to remove the entire dashboard, and that can take hours and hours and hours, and that's going to cost a fortune in labour. Next up, all the bolsters and the seats are known to get overly squishy, and the cables that do all like the adjusting, they're also known to fail and break. Not in this car, but. The interior plastics, especially on the pre-2004 models, gets really brittle with age and can just break, especially like on any moving parts, so watch out for that, and hence why it kind of rattles a lot. Check that all the warning lights work and actually go out, more importantly. The airbag light might just be a dodgy connection under the seat, but the ABS light, if that's not working properly or is not going out, it might actually mean a whole new unit under the bonnet. Speaking of electronic issues, these things are becoming renowned for a vast array of different electronic gremlins, from power windows and power mirrors just not working, infotainment systems freaking out, even to the point that the seats will think there's someone sitting in them, so they'll give you that passenger chime noise when there's no one sitting in the car, and that's not annoying at all, is it? Look, we should mention, yes, there's stacks of problems with these things, but there are thousands of examples of these running around out there that have had no problems whatsoever. Exactly like this car. This thing has been running faultlessly since the owner bought it brand new, but it has been thoroughly cared for and looked after. So should you buy one? We'll get to that in a sec. Now, what about any mechanical issues with these things? What goes wrong with them? Well, look, I'm not a mechanic. I'm not qualified to answer that question, but Jim is.
If you're an enthusiast and you enjoy working on your car, or if you enjoy paying other people to work on your car, then this might be the car for you. Some of the common repairs you might see are cooling system issues, water pump failures, thermostat housing leaks, expansion tank leaks. You will probably see power steering pump failure. You'll see AC and heating issues. You will also see chronic noise and vibration issues. Seriously though, if you are looking at one, just be warned, they do have some serious engine problems, they have oil leak problems, they have oil consumption problems, they have timing chain issues, and both the manual and the CVT auto transmission have expensive reliability issues. And have a good look underneath the front of it. Because they're quite low, if you come into a driveway or a speed hump a bit hot, the front of it hits and you can easily do damage to the radiator and radiator support panel. And it's plastic and it's piss weak, and you have to pull the whole front of the car apart, and it's about a $1,500 round trip. Look, I know it all seems like doom and gloom, and I get it. They do have some cool features, they're fun to drive and they're kind of cute. And some of them out there have never had a mechanical problem. They've been well maintained, but some of them haven't been. And the ones that haven't been well maintained will give you problems.
So is it safe? Well, look, compared to modern safety standards, yeah, it's kind of safe. Depending on year, spec and options ticked, active safety systems can include traction, dynamic stability and cornering brake controls, while 6 airbags and anti-lock brakes were standard across the range. So, what's it like to drive? Well, let's just say after 20 years and many thousands of kilometres, it's got its own character. So this is a Cooper, not a Cooper S, but even not being the S, it still gets along okay. Like, the engine's relatively smooth and kind of refined, and it's got enough poke and power to have some fun. The gearbox, this is the pre-facelift, so it sort of has the old dodgy Rover gearbox, and it's okay. Now, in terms of ride and handling, look, these things were pretty bloody firm even when they were new, and after 20 years and thousands of kilometres, the suspension is now just really bloody harsh, especially on our crappy Australian roads. And even worse still, it feels like the harsh ride is starting to dismantle the interior. Like, it's bloody rattly in here, and kind of not in that charming 60s Mini kind of way, but just in a, yeah, it's just sort of falling to pieces kind of way. There are some odd other noises as well. On the freeway, there's like a whistling, like a sound kind of coming up from up here. There's a fair bit of road noise, there's a fair bit of wind noise in general. It's a cacophony of noises. Because the suspension is so firm, there's almost no body roll, and because the steering is like super direct and everyone says it kind of like a go-kart, plowing through some corners is so much fun until you hit a pothole and it sounds like the doors are going to fall off. Look, around town, it is a barrel of laughs. It's got so much character, so much charm. It's really enjoyable in like metropolitan areas. And even out here on these country roads, when you find a smooth bit of tarmac, it's awesome. The problem is, this is Australia, and the amount of smooth tarmac is measured in centimetres, not kilometres. So occasionally it's fun. Most of the time it's just a little terrifying that you're going to fall apart. So look, overall, after 20 years and many thousands of kilometres, what's this thing like to drive? Look, as I said at the start, it's full of character and charm. It is a lot of fun, but in terms of refinement, it's really starting to feel its age. Pricing here in Australia kicks off from as little as $4,000 for like an early model with heaps of kilometres on it, probably riddled with issues. And at the other end of the spectrum, you're looking at around about $16,000 for a mint condition Cooper S with minimal kilometres, probably owned by an absolute Mini fanatic. Something like this, a 2002 Cooper in absolutely mint condition, no dramas whatsoever, and a good amount of kilometres on it, somewhere between 9 and 10 grand. And for pricing in the US and the UK, here's a graphic. Mini have a claimed fuel consumption figure of anywhere from 6.9 to 9 litres per 100 kilometres, depending on year, spec and how many accessories you've bolted to it. This particular car is claimed at 9 litres per 100 k's, but on this test, we're seeing figures over 10. Mini offered a pretty rubbish 2-year unlimited kilometre warranty on all Minis, meaning these are all well and truly out of warranty. And servicing is recommended at every 12 months or 15,000 kilometres, but yeah, we'd be doing it far more often than that. So should you buy one? Look, we really want to say yes because like they're super cool, they're really, really fun to drive, and they're getting really, really affordable, but no, you probably shouldn't buy one. The cost of maintenance and upkeep will most likely keep adding up, not to mention how long it could be sitting in your mechanic's workshop or even your garage as it gets pulled apart again to fix some gremlin of an issue. Even if you want a Mini as a second or third like weekend fun car, buy an MX-5 instead. It's more fun to drive, it's a little bit less practical, and it's going to be way more reliable. The only time I would say yes, buy a Mini is if you're a massive Mini fan and you found one of the unicorns, just like this one, that has a perfect service history and has been thoroughly cared for, and if you're happy to work on it and maintain it constantly. But unfortunately, Minis as good as this one are very few and far between. So look, I'm really sorry, but yeah, no, you shouldn't buy one. Yes, they're cheap to buy, but they can be very expensive to maintain. And look, no amount of cool makes up for the anxiety that comes with the potential of impending mechanical failure. Look, I personally love these things, but if you want a super reliable workhorse of a little car, they're nowhere near as funky, but just go and look at a Yaris. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and hey, what did you think of the Mini? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, can you hit those like, subscribe and bell icon buttons, and go and check us out on the socials. See you next time. But if you're not from Australia, don't panic, because everything we're going to be here we go. Pre-facelift have this grille, the post-facelift
Cooling system leaks, water pumps and thermostat housings and expansion tanks. You might also see other things, which I can't remember what they are now, so I've got it written down. But just keep in mind, some of them are not good. Some of them, oh, it's so close. Sorry.